Unaware his wife had just inherited her father's fortune, husband and his family mocked her at the funeral. What happened when the will was read shocked them. He didn't just mock her, he humiliated her at her lowest moment, right beside her father's coffin, in front of every guest, while his mother whispered poison into his ear, and the woman he secretly spent nights with stood behind him, smiling. A few days after losing the only person who ever truly protected her, Emily Carter walked into the funeral hall, her grief still raw, her father's final warning still echoing in her heart. Do not trust them, Emily. She hadn't understood what he meant then, but she was about to. Adam stood with his family in a tight circle, their laughter barely disguised. They looked at her with the same cold eyes they'd used for years, eyes that judged, eyes that wanted control, eyes that believed she was nothing now that her father was gone. She looks pathetic, his sister whispered. Her father probably left her nothing, his mother added. Emily heard every word, but she said nothing. And then came Sabrina, the woman Adam claimed was just a friend. She slid her hand down his arm and whispered a sentence that made Emily's knees weaken. After today, you need to make a decision. Adam didn't pull away. He didn't defend his wife. He didn't comfort her. Instead, he marched toward her, grabbed her hand too tightly, and hissed under his breath, "Don't embarrass me today." What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Emily's father had already made a decision of his own, a decision sealed in documents her husband didn't even know existed, a decision that would expose their greed, their lies, and their betrayal in a single moment so shocking it would leave Adam and his entire family frozen in place. Dear viewer, thank you for being here. If you're watching without subscribing, it's like letting Emily stand alone in that funeral hall again. When you subscribe, you stand with every quiet soul who has ever been mocked, underestimated, or betrayed at their weakest moment. Click that button and tell me where you're watching from. The sound of strained breathing snapped through the room like a warning. Emily Carter, 32 years old, rushed forward before the panic could fully rise inside her chest. Her father's chest had caught in one uneven lift, and for a second she feared it would be the last. She placed a trembling hand over his, whispering soft comfort until his breathing steadied again. Only then did she allow herself to exhale. The dim lamplight painted the room in a warm glow, but the warmth felt borrowed, held together by habit, not hope. Emily adjusted the pillow beneath her father's head with a practiced gentleness. She had done this every night for months, ever since his health collapsed. A portable monitor hummed quietly by the bed, its weak green lights blinking. His wrist still carried a faded hospital band, a small sign of how long she had been fighting for his comfort at home instead of keeping him in a ward. Emily wasn't the kind of woman who complained. She never had been. She had lived a quiet life, built on small sacrifices and quiet loyalty. Growing up as the only child of Henry Carter, she learned responsibility young. Her mother passed when she was 12, and her father filled both roles without hesitation. He showed her how to balance accounts, track household records, and read contracts, not because he expected her to need them, but because he wanted her to never depend on anyone blindly. Flashbacks blurred into the present as she sat beside him now. She remembered his calm voice teaching her how to sign her name correctly, how to read the fine print others ignored, how to stand firm when people tried to make her feel small. At the time, she thought he was teaching her adulthood. Now she realized he had been teaching her protection. Her father, even in weakness, held on to dignity. She had inherited that from him. Quiet strength, not money. She hadn't grown up wealthy. Her father managed a small family company and lived simply. Over the years, everything he earned, every property, every account, he placed carefully in arrangements she didn't fully understand. When she'd asked, he would smile and say, "You'll understand it when you need to." He never bragged, never boasted, but now she suspected he was preparing something he wanted her to know, something he had guarded fiercely. Tonight she read him an old letter she wrote when she was 16. He had kept it folded at the bottom of his drawer, the ink smudged by time but not forgotten. Her voice shook slightly as she read, remembering the girl she used to be, hopeful, sensitive, trusting. Her father's eyes opened a little, weak but focused. focused only on her. "Emily," he whispered, the word fragile but urgent. She leaned closer, brushing a stray gray hair from his forehead. "Yes, Dad? Listen to me. When I'm gone," his voice thinned like fading thread. "Promise me you will protect what I've protected for you." Emily frowned. His tone held something she didn't understand, something he was almost afraid to say. "What do you mean? Protect what?" Henry Carter's eyes shifted toward the doorway. Just for a moment, as if someone might be listening from the hallway outside his bedroom. As if this house, which had always felt safe, now had corners she should be wary of. Before he could answer, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The vibration cut through the silence like a rude knock. Emily reached for it hesitantly. A message from Adam, her husband, 35 years old, charismatic to outsiders, curt behind closed doors. "Be home early. My mother wants to talk to you. Again." The words tightened her chest. For months, Emily had been splitting her time between this house and the one she shared with Adam. But most nights she stayed here. Conversations with Adam's mother felt like walking through a field of hidden traps. She always found a way to remind Emily she wasn't good enough for their family, not elegant enough, not polished enough, not wealthy enough. Emily typed nothing back. She stared at the screen until it dimmed, her expression sinking into something unreadable. Her father watched her with tired knowing. He had seen the strain long before she admitted it to herself. "Emily," he whispered again, voice hoarse. She turned back quickly, gripping his hand. "I'm here, Dad. I'm right here." His fingers pressed weakly against hers. "Do not trust them, Emily." The words struck the air like a blade. Emily stilled, completely. "Dad," she breathed, unsure if he meant Adam, Adam's family, or someone else entirely. But his eyes had already closed, drained from the effort. The room felt heavier now, as though the shadows themselves had leaned closer. Emily held his hand tighter, her heart beating with a new, uneasy rhythm she didn't yet understand. Outside the bedroom, her phone buzzed again, longer this time, almost as if warning her that Adam's world would soon collide with hers in a way she wasn't ready for. And somewhere toward the back of the house, she thought she heard a soft thud, like a side door closing, a faint sound out of place at this late hour. For a second she froze, listening. But the noise faded, and the monitor's weak beeps filled the silence again. She told herself it was just the wind. She didn't yet know it was the first sign that someone else had taken an interest in what her father had protected for her. The laughter hit Emily like a slap the moment she unlocked the front door of the house she shared with Adam. Loud, carefree, out of place. She froze in the doorway, the sound dragging her out of the heavy thoughts she carried from her father's bedside. It was late, later than she'd promised Adam. She had stayed longer with her father after his breathing scare, making sure he was settled before she left. Her clothes still carried the faint scent of his room, antiseptic and old aftershave. Adam was on the couch, leaning back as if his entire world had no weight. He was 35 years old, tall, neatly dressed, and always polished when other people watched. His smile was wide, brighter than anything he had shown her in weeks. Across from him sat a woman Emily immediately recognized. Sabrina Moore, 29, introduced months ago as his friend from work. She was stylish, confident, with a voice that slid across the room like silk, and far too comfortable inside Emily's home. Sabrina laughed again, her hand lightly touching Adam's knee before she noticed Emily in the doorway. "Oh, Emily!" Sabrina jumped up, walking toward her with open arms. "It's been so long." Her hug lasted a moment too long, her perfume strong enough to cloud the air, a sharp floral scent that dragged up a memory Emily had pushed away. A flash. Months earlier, Adam coming home late, his shirt carrying that same perfume. Emily had asked casually if he had visited a store. He'd answered too quickly. "Probably someone at work hugged me." She told herself she was imagining things. She didn't want to be the jealous wife. She trusted too easily. Now, the scent felt like proof she didn't want. Emily gently pulled away. "I didn't know we had company." Adam shrugged without looking at her. "You came home late. We didn't think you'd mind." Sabrina smiled, taking a seat again, this time closer to him than before. Before Emily could respond, another voice drifted from the dining area. "Late again?" Adam's mother, Margaret, stepped forward. 60 years old, sharp eyes, always judging. She crossed her arms as if Emily had committed an offense. "You should be here supporting your husband, not running around all evening." Emily kept her voice calm. "I was helping my father. He had a difficult night. His breathing almost stopped." Margaret rolled her eyes so hard it was almost theatrical. Yes, yes, we know. Everything is always about your father." Emily swallowed the sting. She didn't want to fight. Not here, not now. She was too tired to explain hospice visits to people who didn't care. She set her bag on the table. "I'm going upstairs to change." But as she started up the stairs, she heard Sabrina giggle softly. "This house is cozy, but it could be so much nicer with a woman's touch." Adam laughed. "That's what I keep saying." Emily's hand tightened on the railing. She forced herself to keep climbing, refusing to look back. Her chest tightened with something she couldn't name. Fear, anger, confusion, maybe all three tangled together. Inside the bedroom, she sat on the edge of the bed and let herself breathe. Deep, shaky breaths. She had met Sabrina before. It was never a long meeting, always brief, always with Sabrina acting a little too warm with Adam, a little too casual with Emily. As if Emily was a guest in her own marriage. Was she imagining things again? No, something was wrong, deeply wrong. She lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her father's fading voice echoed in her mind. "Do not trust them, Emily." Her phone buzzed. A text from Adam. "You could at least try to be polite." That was all he had to say after leaving her alone for hours, after letting his mother scold her, after laughing with another woman, while her father lay struggling to breathe. She put the phone down without replying. Minutes passed before she heard footsteps heading upstairs. 2 sets, not one. Light, feminine ones alongside heavier ones. Emily sat up, listening. Whispers. First Adam's voice. Low, annoyed. "Just give it time. She won't cause trouble." Then Sabrina's voice. Softer, confident. "But you said you'd talk to her soon." "I'm getting tired of waiting." Emily's heartbeat thudded against her ribs. Footsteps moved past her door and toward the guest room. A door clicked softly. Then Sabrina's voice again, barely above a whisper, but clear through the thin walls. "She won't be in the picture much longer." Emily's breath caught in her throat. The hallway fell silent. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She didn't even breathe for a full second. Her father's warning echoed again. "Do not trust them?" Time crawled. At some point later, when the whispers had faded and the house had sunk into a fake, heavy quiet, Emily heard the front door creak open downstairs, then close gently. Soft footsteps left across the porch, followed by the faint sound of a car engine starting and pulling away. It sounded like someone leaving without wanting to be seen. A hint, quiet but sharp, that something about tomorrow would change everything. Emily stared at the ceiling through the darkness, torn between going back to her father's side immediately and collapsing from exhaustion. She didn't know it yet, but by morning, both worlds, her father's and Adam's, would collide in a way she could never undo. The phone ringing yanked Emily out of a shallow, restless sleep. Her heart jumped before she even checked the screen. It was the nurse who helped with her father at night. "Emily, I'm sorry to wake you," the woman said gently. "His breathing is getting worse. I think you should come now." That was all it took. Emily grabbed her keys with shaking hands and drove through the half-empty streets, the city still dark and quiet. By the time she burst into her father's room, the door slammed against the wall. The violent sound broke the fragile silence where her father lay. His chest jolted, his breathing catching in a painful gasp. Emily rushed to his bedside, grabbing his hand with both of hers. "Dad, I'm here, she whispered urgently, fighting panic. His eyelids fluttered, struggling to open. Henry Carter, 67 years old, once strong and sharp-minded, now looked as fragile as the thin sheets covering him. The medical monitor beside him beeped irregularly, each sound a reminder that time was slipping faster than she could hold on to. Emily lowered her face close to his so he could see her clearly. "I'm not leaving you tonight," she said, voice cracking. The intensity in the room slowly softened into something quieter, something heavier. Emily sat down, adjusting his blanket, brushing sweat from his forehead. She knew every movement now, every sign of discomfort, every shift of breath. Caring for him had become her whole world these past months. Anytime she tried to spend longer at Adam's house, guilt dragged her back here. A tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. She didn't want him to see her break. He blinked slowly, his eyes holding a silent apology. Apology for leaving her too soon. Emily. His voice was thin, almost lost. I'm right here, Dad, she whispered. His breathing steadied slightly, enough for him to study her face, enough for a flicker of memory to spark in both of them. Without warning, the room began to fill with echoing flashes, their shared past rising like soft waves. Emily, at 5, sitting on Henry's lap, learning how to write her name, his warm hand guiding her smaller one. That's it, slow and steady. Your name means something. Never sign it carelessly. Emily at 12 after her mother passed, Henry sitting beside her with 2 cups of warm milk. You are stronger than you realize, he whispered into her hair. Emily at 20, learning how to read financial forms, Henry pointing at each line. People will try to confuse you, Emily. Always know what belongs to you. Henry sealing a thick letter, writing carefully on the front. For Emily only. He locked it inside a folder she didn't know existed, then slid that folder into a locked briefcase he kept in his study. The present blurred with the warmth of each memory. Emily's grip on his hand tightened. Dad, why did you teach me all that? She whispered, as if finally asking a question she had never dared to before. Henry exhaled shakily. His eyes moved toward the dresser as if remembering something hidden, something important. Then he looked back at her with a seriousness she hadn't seen in years. Emily, he said softly, Adam's family wants what's ours. Her stomach tightened. He lifted a trembling hand, brushing her arm as if trying to pass strength into her. I've kept everything in your name, every property, every account, because I knew one day you would need protection. Emily shook her head gently, trying to calm him. Dad, you should rest. You don't have to think about that now. But his expression sharpened despite the pain. No, listen. His voice grew urgent. Your husband, his mother, they are not what they pretend to be. I saw their intentions long before you noticed the signs. They came to me more than once, asking questions about my company, my properties, like they were already counting what would be theirs. Emily's heart dropped. She remembered Sabrina's whisper from earlier. She won't be in the picture much longer. She had tried to dismiss it, but now her father's words dug into the same fear. Henry squeezed her hand with surprising strength. You must protect what I protected for you. His eyes watered, not from sickness, but from worry. I trust you more than anyone, he whispered, echoing the same words he had told her in her childhood. Then, his breathing changed, a sharp hitch, a painful choke. Dad? Emily stood up quickly, her breath fleeing her chest. Dad, talk to me. What is it? He struggled to lift his head. I need to tell you where the documents are. But the sentence never finished. His breath broke mid-word. His chest seized in a violent, uneven rise. Dad! Emily grabbed him, her voice shaking. Stay with me, please. The monitor beside him let out a sharp warning beep. He tried to speak, one more word, but only a weak rasp escaped. Emily's hands shook uncontrollably as she pressed the call button for the nurse and reached for her phone with the other, tears blurring her vision. She knew the ambulance would come, but some part of her already understood they might be too late. And then, his eyes widened. Not in fear, but in warning. He looked past her, toward the bedroom doorway. Emily turned sharply. But the hallway was empty, or had someone just slipped out of sight? She heard hurried footsteps further down the corridor, then a latch. A second later, somewhere outside the house, a car engine started, soft, quick, as if leaving before being noticed. In the stillness that followed, Henry's last breath trembled through the room, and something inside Emily broke and hardened at the same time. 3 days later, the world moved on as if nothing had happened. But Emily hadn't. She barely stepped into the funeral hall before it hit her. A wave of harsh whispers that sliced through the air like sharp glass. It wasn't grief. It wasn't sympathy. It was judgment. Dozens of eyes followed her, tracing her steps as if she were a stranger walking into the wrong room. The air felt dense, heavy with unspoken opinions. Her father's portrait stood at the front, framed, gentle, proud, but the warmth she once felt around him didn't reach her here. The intensity of the moment forced her still. She gripped the edge of a chair to keep herself standing. Then she saw them. Adam and his family. Grouped in a corner like a cluster of polished statues, smirking, whispering, watching her instead of honoring her father. Adam, 35 years old, looked freshly pressed in his black suit, like he was attending an important business event. His mother, Margaret, sat beside him with her usual cold expression. Adam's younger sister, Chloe, was there too, chewing gum with little respect. And leaning slightly behind Adam, as if she had every right to stand there, was Sabrina, the woman who was supposedly just a friend from work. Emily's stomach twisted. The whispers weren't truly quiet. They were the kind of low voices people used when they wanted to be heard, but still pretend they were being discreet. "She looks pathetic," Chloe said, loud enough for two nearby guests to glance over. Margaret added, "Her father probably left her nothing anyway." That man never had real money. Adam didn't stop them. He didn't defend her. Instead, he smirked, like he enjoyed the show, like he had already decided how this day would end. Emily tried to breathe. She tried to focus on her father's photo, his gentle smile, the one that always told her she wasn't alone. But the voices kept pulling her back into the storm. "Adam deserves someone who isn't a burden," Margaret said, lifting her chin. "Someone like—" Her eyes flicked to Sabrina. She leaned in toward Adam's ear and murmured, "You could do so much better than her." Her voice, low and poisonous, meant only for him. Emily's chest tightened painfully. She looked at Adam. He didn't even look ashamed. He seemed entertained. Sabrina stepped closer to him, touching his arm as if the entire room wasn't watching. Her fingertips slid down his sleeve in a slow movement, too familiar to be innocent. She leaned in toward his ear. "After the funeral," she whispered, "you need to make a decision." Emily's heart throbbed painfully in her chest. It wasn't just the touch. It wasn't just the whisper. It was the perfume. That same sharply sweet scent she found on Adam's jacket months ago. That same smile she noticed when he came home late. That same voice she heard barely contained in the hallway 2 nights before her father died. Everything clicked. All the moments she brushed off, all the doubts she pushed down, they collided into a truth she could no longer hide from. Her knees weakened, the world around her blurred. She steadied herself on the side of a wooden pew as memories hit her like quiet lightning. Adam coming home late. Sabrina brushing lint off his shirt with gentle hands. Adam laughing in the living room with her, while Emily stood at the doorway, invisible. Sabrina's whisper upstairs. She won't be in the picture much longer. Her father's last warning. Adam's family wants what's ours. Emily swallowed hard, forcing the tears back. She would not fall apart here. Not in front of them. Not in front of people waiting for her to crumble. She walked to the front where her father's portrait stood. She touched the frame lightly, whispering inside her heart, "I'm sorry you have to see me like this." For a brief moment, the room quieted. A soft memory settled over her. The nights she sat with her father, reading, talking, listening. His voice echoed gently in her mind. "Strength isn't loud, Emily. It's steady." She exhaled slowly. Then footsteps approached behind her, heavy, impatient ones. Adam grabbed her hand, not gently, not lovingly. His grip was rough, as if he owned her skin, her choices, her grief. He leaned close, his voice low and sharp. "Don't embarrass me today." His words crashed into her like a cold wave. Embarrass him? This was her father's funeral. The man who raised her alone. The man who protected her his whole life. And Adam wanted her to behave? Emily pulled her hand slightly, trying to free herself, but Adam tightened his grip until her fingers ached. Her father's warning whispered through her memory like a ghost. "Do not trust them, Emily." She tried again to pull away, but Adam's fingers only pressed harder. His mother glanced over with thinly veiled annoyance. Sabrina watched with quiet satisfaction, like a spectator who already knew how the scene should end. And then, a sudden hush fell over the room. Someone new had entered the hall. Emily turned slightly, her breath catching when she recognized the dark suit and the solemn expression. Her father's lawyer. He walked toward her slowly, carrying a sealed folder under his arm, and his eyes were locked on Emily, as if he knew something the others didn't, like he was carrying the message her father never got to finish, a message that would break everything open. Emily shut the bedroom door behind her with force, her breath unsteady, her hands trembling so badly she had to grip the dresser to stay upright. The humiliation from the funeral still burned inside her. Adam's cruel grip, Sabrina's whisper, Margaret's smirk, all stacked on top of her grief like weights crushing her chest. She had come straight back to her father's house after the funeral, claiming she needed to sort his things. Adam hadn't argued. He was too busy speaking in low tones with his mother and Sabrina near the lawyer. The moment she stepped into her father's room, the noise of the hall felt miles away. But something else burned too. Her father's warning. Do not trust them, Emily. The intensity of his voice, so weak and yet so urgent, echoed in her mind until it drowned out every other thought. She forced herself to move, to breathe, to do anything except fall apart. She crossed the room, heading toward the wooden chair beside her father's bed. She sank onto it slowly, letting the stillness of the room wrap around her like a cold blanket. Everything in this room held her father's presence, the faint scent of his aftershave, the stack of books he never got to finish, the small frame photo of her mother on the table, the briefcase in the corner that she remembered from childhood but had never seen open. Emily brushed her hand across the quilt, remembering the calm nights she spent here reading to him, talking about old memories, laughing through pain. But now she felt something different, something she had felt growing since the funeral began. A shift, a spark, a quiet anger forming under her sadness. She began gathering his belongings with gentle hands, organizing them into small piles. Each object carried a story. His glasses, the watch he'd worn for decades, the pen he used to sign every important document. Then she noticed something wedged behind a stack of books on the second shelf, an envelope, cream-colored, unopened, and written in her father's careful handwriting, for Emily only. Her breath caught. Slowly she picked it up, running her thumb along the sealed edge as if she were touching something sacred. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a folded letter, handwritten in blue ink. Emily unfolded it carefully, afraid the words might fall apart if she rushed. The first line stole her breath. My dear Emily, if you are reading this, it means I have left you sooner than I wanted. Her throat tightened. She blinked away tears and read on. I need you to know that I've ensured your future is safe. Everything I built, everything I protected, all of it is yours. You will understand the details soon. Her hand shook as she turned the page. There are people around you who are not what they pretend to be. Do not let Adam's family near any documents. They have always wanted control, not love. I have already signed the final version of my will with Mr. Thompson. He knows exactly what to do. Emily's stomach twisted. Her father had known. He had seen through them long before she did. Another flash of memory surfaced, a conversation she had forgotten until now. Emily at the kitchen table years ago, her father sipping tea as he watched her. Remember this, Em, he said softly. Greedy people reveal themselves during funerals. That's when masks fall off. She hadn't understood then. Now she did. Emily pressed the letter to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks, not just from grief, but from clarity. Her father had been protecting her even in his last days. He'd been preparing her for the very moment she faced today. She wiped her tears and reached for her phone. She called the only person who could answer the questions burning inside her, the family lawyer. He picked up on the first ring. Mr. Thompson, Emily whispered, I found a letter from my father. He said you would explain everything. He mentioned the will. There was a long pause on the other end, a heavy pause, the kind that held secrets. Then his voice, low and steady. Emily, I'm glad you found that letter. Your father asked me to wait until after the funeral before we read anything official. You need to come tomorrow. There are things you don't know. Her pulse quickened. What things? He exhaled slowly as if choosing his words. Things your father kept hidden to protect you, the will, the changes he made, and another message he left with me. separate from the one you're holding. Emily's fingers tightened around the phone. Before she could ask more, he said softly, "And whatever happens tonight, do not let anyone near your father's documents or that briefcase in his room. Adam's family has already tried to ask questions they have no right to ask." The line went silent. Outside the room, a floorboard creaked, slow, deliberate, as if someone was standing just beyond the door. Emily's breath hitched. She turned her head toward the doorway, heart pounding, letter clutched in her hand. Someone knew more than they should, and tomorrow when the will was read, they would all find out exactly what Henry Carter had done. The morning exploded with noise before Emily even opened her eyes. Doors slammed. Voices clashed in the hallway. Footsteps stomped across the floor like a small storm circling outside her room. Emily shot upright, heart racing. For a second, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. Her father's house. The same house where she had held his hand during his last breath. The same house where she'd found his letter. The same house where she'd stayed the night after the funeral, ignoring Adam's calls. "Emily!" Adam's voice thundered through the door. "Get dressed. We're leaving in an hour." Her breath caught. The force in his tone didn't sound like a husband speaking to his wife. It sounded like a man who believed he had everything under control. She opened the door slowly. Adam stood there already in a dark suit, hair slicked back, jaw clenched with impatience. Behind him hovered Margaret, his mother, arms crossed, chin raised, wearing a black dress she somehow made look judgmental. Beside them, to Emily's shock, was Sabrina, dressed more like she was going to brunch than a legal meeting. She held a small handbag and smiled sweetly. Too sweet, too confident, too comfortable in a place she didn't belong. Emily froze for a moment, not expecting to see Sabrina there at all. Adam noticed her expression. "She's coming with us," he said quickly. "She's been supporting me while you've been distracted." Distracted, taking care of her dying father. Emily said nothing. If she opened her mouth, she wasn't sure silence would survive. She thought of Mr. Thompson's voice from the night before. "Your father asked that everyone who could try to influence you be present when we read the will." It made sense now why Adam was so eager. He thought the reading was about him. Sabrina stepped forward, touching Adam's arm gently. "We're all here for you," she said, deliberately loud enough. "This meeting is stressful. You shouldn't go through it alone." Margaret nodded as if Sabrina were a daughter-in-law she approved of. "Exactly. Today is important. Your father left a mess, and we deserve to know how much of it affects us." Emily's breath tightened. Us? Her father owed them nothing. But she swallowed her anger. This was not the moment to fight with people who had already shown their greed in every way possible. She dressed silently, choosing a plain black blouse and slacks. The mirror reflected tired eyes, but there was also something new in them. Resolve. While getting ready, her mind replayed the night before. The letter she'd read, the line that said, "Everything I built. All of it is yours," and the calm, practical tone in which Mr. Thompson told her they would meet today. On his advice, she had also spoken briefly with another lawyer in his firm. The divorce papers now sitting in her bag were the quiet proof that she was done being blind. The drive to the lawyer's office was heavy with tension. No one spoke. Adam stared out the window, tapping his foot impatiently. Sabrina kept glancing at him, smiling softly whenever he met her eyes. Margaret inspected her nails, completely relaxed, like a queen waiting to claim her kingdom. Emily kept her gaze fixed on the road ahead. Her father's words echoed quietly inside her. "Protect what I protected for you." When they arrived, the lawyer, Mr. Thompson, a calm man in his early 60s, greeted them at the door. He knew Emily well. He had served her father for over 30 years. "Thank you for coming," he said softly to Emily first, with a respectful nod that made her feel seen, then paused when he saw Adam's family trailing behind her. "And they are here as well?" he asked carefully. Adam stepped forward before Emily could answer. "Of course we're here. This concerns us too. We're family, and Sabrina is a close friend." Sabrina offered a polite smile, like she belonged. Mr. Thompson gave a polite but thin smile of his own. "Mr. Carter specifically requested that the will be read with everyone present," he said. "Every person who might Attempt influence. Emily's breath steadied. Her father planned this. He knew exactly who would try to twist things when he was gone. They followed the lawyer into a conference room with a long wooden table. A thick folder sat at the center, along with a small stack of sealed envelopes. Adam sat at the head of the table without asking. Sabrina took the seat next to him, crossing her legs gracefully. Margaret sat on his other side. Emily quietly sat at the far end, directly across from the lawyer. She didn't need to sit close. She didn't need to be loud. Her father had already prepared the truth. Margaret leaned back in her chair, smug. Finally, we'll be rewarded for tolerating her father all these years. Sabrina smirked, tilting her head. Long overdue, if you ask me. Emily's jaw tightened, but she kept her face calm. She rested her hand lightly on her bag, feeling the folded weight of the divorce papers inside. Whether Adam inherited anything or not, he would not be staying in her life. Mr. Thompson opened the folder. The room stilled. His eyes moved slowly across the table until they reached Emily. There is something I must read first, he said. Adam leaned forward. Just get to the part about the inheritance. Mr. Thompson ignored him. He lifted a sealed document marked with Henry Carter's handwriting. Before anything else, he said, voice steady, Mr. Carter left a private message for his daughter to be read in front of all of you. Every person at the table stiffened. Adam's hand stopped tapping. Sabrina's smile froze. Margaret's eyes narrowed, and Emily felt her heartbeat surge. The lawyer broke the seal. Inside was a letter her father wrote with the same careful hand he used for everything important. As he unfolded it, Emily felt the air shift around her. Something was coming. Something her father wanted her to hear first. The room cracked open with tension the moment Mr. Thompson unfolded the letter. Not slow, not gentle, but sharp, like a blade drawn across the air. Emily's breath caught as the paper rustled. Adam's fingers tightened on the table edge. Sabrina straightened in her seat, suddenly alert. Margaret's lips pinched into a thin line. Mr. Thompson lifted his eyes, steady and unreadable. This, he said, is the message your father insisted be read before the will. He began to read. To my beloved daughter Emily. The room fell silent instantly. Margaret shifted uncomfortably. Sabrina crossed her arms. Adam stared straight ahead as if pretending the words weren't directed at his wife. You have been my greatest comfort, my peace, my pride. Everything I built was always meant for you. Emily blinked, tears burning the edges of her eyes. Even now, even gone, her father's voice felt like home. But the rest of the room was cracking. Mr. Thompson continued, I changed my will months ago after seeing things I hoped I'd never have to witness. Margaret's eyes snapped toward Adam. Adam stiffened. Sabrina swallowed hard. Emily didn't move. She didn't speak. Her heart pounded, but her face remained calm. She remembered her father's warnings, his shaken voice, his fear. Mr. Thompson read on. I saw the truth of the people around you. I saw the cruelty, the greed, the disrespect shown toward you, even while you cared for me with every part of your heart. Margaret bristled. He misinterpreted. Mr. Thompson raised a hand. Let me finish. He unfolded the last page. Adam once spoke about me as if I were nothing but a walking wallet. A loud gasp slipped from someone in the back of the room, one of the junior staff standing by the door. Adam's face drained of color, his mouth open, but no words formed. Emily's heart tightened. A memory flashed. Her father lying weakly in bed one afternoon, weeks before he died. Voices drifting in from the hallway. Adam and Margaret speaking, thinking he was asleep. You don't need to worry, Adam had said. When he's gone, everything falls into our hands anyway. He's just a walking wallet. Emily hadn't heard those words then, but her father had, and it broke him. Back in the present, the lawyer continued. After hearing that, I made my final decision. A long pause filled the room, thick, suffocating. Then with calm finality, Mr. Thompson read the last line. Therefore, I leave my entire estate, every account, property, and company share that remains under my ownership, to my daughter, Emily Carter, and to her alone. The room fell into stunned silence. Emily didn't move. She sat perfectly still, breath trembling, hands clasped in her lap. Adam lurched to his feet. This must be a mistake. Mr. Thompson didn't flinch. There is no mistake. Mr. Carter transferred most assets into Emily's name long before his passing and confirmed all remaining rights in this final will. I updated the documents myself. Adam had never bothered to read the documents Henry sent or ask real questions. Until this moment, he had no idea his wife already legally owned almost everything he'd been counting on. Sabrina's smile vanished. Her hands gripped the armrests until her knuckles whitened. Margaret hissed, "He wouldn't do this. He knew we were family." Mr. Thompson calmly closed the letter. Mr. Carter was very clear about who he trusted. He asked that you all be here so there would be no confusion and no rumors. Adam turned to Emily, fury and fear mixing in his eyes. "Did you know about this?" Emily met his gaze quietly. "No, but my father tried to warn me." A low whisper traveled across the room. "She owns everything?" Adam swallowed hard. "This changes nothing." Sabrina cut in sharply. "It changes everything." Her voice shook now. Adam shot her a glare, but she didn't stop. Her expression twisted, fear turning into anger. "So what now?" she demanded. "We just lose everything." Margaret slammed her hand on the table. "This can't be legal." "It is," Mr. Thompson replied. "The documents were signed months ago, witnessed, filed. Your son had plenty of time to ask questions he chose not to ask." Adam's breath turned quick and shallow. For the first time, he looked truly afraid. Emily watched him quietly, and in that moment, something inside her settled. Something strong, something her father always believed she had. Mr. Thompson continued speaking about legal procedures, final expenses, transfer dates, but Emily didn't hear most of it. Her focus sharpened to one cold, steady line of thought. Adam used her. His family mocked her. Sabrina stood beside him like a woman claiming territory that wasn't hers. And her father, her only protector, had been right all along. Adam leaned closer, voice low enough only she could hear. "You know I need this," he whispered harshly. "Don't ruin my life." Emily didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her bag, her movements calm and deliberate. She pulled out a white envelope, thin, crisp, marked with her attorney's letterhead. The papers had been drafted overnight, using everything she'd finally allowed herself to admit. Then she slid it across the table toward Adam. His hand hovered above it, confused. "What is this?" he asked. Emily looked at him with quiet strength. "Read it." He opened it. His eyes widened. Divorce papers. Silence crashed over the room like a tidal wave. Sabrina's jaw dropped open. Margaret gasped sharply. Adam's fingers trembled. Emily stood slowly, and before leaving the room, she said softly, "I won't be used anymore." The room froze. But as she stepped into the hallway, she heard something. A quiet voice behind her. Mr. Thompson, calm, certain. "Emily," he called gently, "there's still one more document your father left for you. We'll discuss it when you're ready." Something shifted in the air. A hint of an even bigger truth waiting just ahead. Emily barely made it 3 steps down the hallway before she heard the thunder of footsteps racing after her. "Emily, wait!" Adam's voice cracked with panic, something she hadn't heard from him in years. He grabbed her wrist, breathless, desperate, completely stripped of the confidence he showed minutes ago. But Emily didn't flinch. She turned slowly, her eyes calm, steady, almost cold. "We can fix this," Adam said, his voice shaking. "You don't have to do this. We can figure things out. I just need time." Emily looked at him with a softness that wasn't affection. It was pity. "Fix what, Adam?" she asked quietly. "Who were you planning to fix things with last night? Me or Sabrina?" His jaw dropped. His face drained of color, caught. For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy, undeniable. Adam stuttered, I don't know what you think you heard." Emily stepped closer until her eyes were inches from his. Her voice was a whisper, but every word cut clean. "I heard enough." His grip loosened. Panic flickered across his face, raw and real, like a man watching the life he built crumble beneath him. Before he could speak again, a sharp ringtone echoed down the hallway. Sabrina. She appeared from the conference room doorway, phone already in her hand. Her expression was irritated, not devastated. She answered without glancing at Adam. Her voice softened instantly. "Oh, it's you. Hi." Emily watched Adam's face twist. Sabrina turned away slightly, lowering her voice. "But not enough. Yes, I told you I'm leaving that situation behind. No, he won't have anything soon. It's fine. Yes, I'm ready when you are." Adam's breath hitched. Sabrina hung up and turned toward them, straightening her blouse and forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said, "I guess this is the perfect time to talk." Emily stayed still, but Adam stepped forward. "Sabrina, what was that?" She sighed dramatically. "Honestly, I can't keep pretending. You said we'd have access to money once your father-in-law passed. You said we'd be comfortable." Her eyes flicked toward Emily. "But now?" She shrugged. "You don't have anything. I have an offer from someone who actually can take care of me." Adam stared at her, stunned. "You're leaving?" He choked. Sabrina lifted her purse from the nearby table. "Adam, be serious. You're not useful to me anymore." The hallway went still. Emily didn't move. She didn't need to. Every truth she had quietly suspected was breaking open without her lifting a finger. Sabrina walked past Adam as if he were a stranger, heels clicking sharply, each step another wound. At the doorway, she paused just long enough to add, "Next time, don't promise things you can't deliver." And then she left. Adam collapsed back against the wall, hands on his head, breathing hard. He looked destroyed by greed, by betrayal, by the mess he created. Emily watched him, her face unreadable. This was not victory. This was truth. Margaret's voice shattered the silence. "Adam, what have you done?" She stormed down the hallway, eyes blazing, her elegant posture replaced with fury. "You idiot," she hissed. "You let everything slip through your fingers. This should have been ours, everything. We tolerated her father for years because we thought—" Emily stared at her. Margaret froze. The words hung in the air like poison. We tolerated her father. The truth, the greed, the arrogance. It was all out now, without Emily pushing for a single confession. Margaret grabbed Adam's arm, shaking him. "Fix this! Fix it!" Adam looked broken, eyes red, voice cracked. "I tried, but she won't help us." Margaret turned to Emily with sudden desperation. "Emily, please, think of the family." Emily's voice cut through her pleading. "I did, for years." Margaret faltered. Before the argument could continue, Mr. Thompson approached from the conference room. Calm, steady. "Mr. Carter," he said to Adam, "your father-in-law made very clear legal arrangements before his passing." Adam stood up straighter, fire returning to his eyes. "I still have rights." Mr. Thompson's expression didn't change. "No," he said gently but firmly. "You have no legal claim to Mr. Carter's estate. Everything was transferred to Emily lawfully, and the will confirms it." The hallway fell silent. Adam stared, helpless, shaking, disbelieving. Emily stepped back, her breath slow, steady. Mr. Thompson turned to her. "For now," he said quietly, "let's focus on settling your father's affairs. The divorce and any further action will be handled in court." Emily nodded. Her world was shifting, but for the first time, it was shifting in her favor. Later, as she waited near the office entrance for a taxi, her mind drifted back to her father's room, the briefcase he kept, the way he had once rested his hand on it and said, "If anything ever happens to me, this holds the rest." Something else was coming, something not just about money, but about what her father wanted her life to look like after all of this. And for the first time, Emily felt ready to hear it. The judge's gavel slammed down so hard the sound shot through the courtroom like a gun going off. "Order!" Everyone in the room jumped except Emily. She didn't flinch. She sat perfectly still at her table, hands folded, eyes calm, waiting for the final blow of truth. Weeks had passed since the will reading. Adam had refused to accept the outcome quietly. He challenged parts of the will, tried to delay the asset transfers, and dragged the divorce into court, still hoping he could claw something back. Now here they were. Adam, sitting at the opposite table, looked nothing like the proud man he once pretended to be. His suit was wrinkled, his face pale, his hands trembling. Margaret sat behind him with a frozen expression of disbelief. Their world was collapsing, and the courtroom felt like the only place left where the truth still mattered. Mr. Thompson, her father's lawyer, stood tall and ready beside Emily's divorce attorney. He held a thick binder in his hands, the one containing every piece of proof that needed to be shown. The judge glanced between them. "We will now hear the supporting evidence regarding the divorce filing and financial claims." Adam swallowed hard. "Your Honor, she's twisting everything." The judge raised a hand. "You will speak when spoken to." Silence dropped again. Mr. Thompson opened the binder. "Your Honor," he began, "what you will see today are not accusations. They are facts documented carefully by Mr. Henry Carter himself, along with the evidence gathered in the past months." He placed several photographs on the evidence screen. A hush swept through the room. Photos of Adam with Sabrina, hands intertwined, kisses exchanged, late-night meetings in parking lots, dates stamped in the corners, photographs taken well before Henry passed away, while Emily was busy taking care of her sick father. Adam's mouth fell open. "Those were taken out of context." Mr. Thompson didn't look at him. He turned the page. Next came printed messages, text exchanges between Adam and Sabrina, plans, confessions. Jokes about Emily being too naive to suspect anything. Wishes for Henry to hurry up and go so the money situation would finally improve. The courtroom gasped. Adam buried his face in his hands. Emily sat still, each revelation painfully familiar and yet strangely distant, like she was watching the life she once lived unravel from the outside. Mr. Thompson continued. "This letter," he said, lifting a single sheet, "was written by Mr. Carter weeks before his passing." He read aloud. "I am deeply concerned for my daughter's safety and future. Her husband has shown disregard for her well-being and speaks of me as if I were nothing more than a wallet. I fear what he will try to take from her when I am gone." Whispers spread through the room. Margaret glared at Adam, fury rising in her eyes. The judge leaned forward. "Is the testimony hand-signed and verified?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And does the financial documentation confirm Mr. Carter's assets belong solely to Emily Carter prior to his passing?" Mr. Thompson handed the judge a stack of financial records. "Yes, every property, every account, every investment, everything was in Emily's name before Mr. Carter died. The will confirmed any residual rights and excluded Mr. Adam Carter entirely." The judge reviewed the papers, his brows lifting with surprise. "So Adam Carter," the judge said slowly, "had no legal claim to any portion of the estate?" "Correct." Adam's breath broke in a small, strangled sound. His lawyer tried to speak, but the judge gave a firm nod, the kind that meant finality. Then the court recognizes the will and financial documentation as valid. The estate belongs entirely to Emily Carter. Emily closed her eyes for a moment. Just a moment, long enough to feel her father's presence, long enough to breathe in the justice he'd fought quietly to give her. But the judge wasn't finished. "As for the divorce proceedings," he said, lifting the file, "based on the overwhelming evidence of infidelity, manipulation, and intent to exploit Mrs. Carter for financial gain," he stamped the papers with a firm, echoing thud. "The divorce is hereby granted." A sound escaped Adam, half sob, half plea. Emily opened her eyes. Everything was finally over. Mr. Thompson placed a gentle hand on her shoulder before stepping back. She nodded in gratitude, her heart steady now. She had stood through grief, betrayal, humiliation, and survived. People in the room whispered, "She didn't deserve that. He only wanted money." Good for her. Public truth, public justice. Her father would have been proud. Emily stood, collecting her bag calmly. She walked toward the exit with quiet grace. But before she reached the door, she heard frantic footsteps behind her. "Emily!" She stopped. Adam rushed toward her, breathing hard, tears streaking down his face. "Emily, please!" he begged, voice breaking. "Please don't leave me like this. I have nothing left." She turned slowly, her expression unreadable. His eyes were desperate, wild, searching for the woman he once controlled. But the woman standing before him now was not the same. Not broken, not afraid, not his. Emily stepped forward, her voice soft but unshakable. "You chose this." Adam reached for her arm, but before he could touch her, a firm hand grabbed his wrist. "Mr. Thompson." "Step back," the lawyer said quietly. "You have no rights here. The court has decided." Adam's eyes widened with dread, and from the corner of the room a shadow moved, someone approaching with a document in hand. A new envelope sealed with a crest Emily recognized too well. Her father's company crest. A final truth waited. Something her father had left behind that she hadn't seen yet. The courthouse doors slammed open behind her with a force that made everyone nearby turn. But Emily didn't. She didn't need to look back. She didn't need to see the chaos she left behind. She stepped out into the sunlight, letting the warmth hit her full on the face like a long-awaited breath after years underwater. For the first time in months, maybe years, the world felt still. Her hands, which had been shaking through funerals, confrontations, lies, and courtroom battles, finally relaxed at her sides. Her heartbeat softened. Her shoulders dropped from the weight they carried. She stood there on the courthouse steps, 32 years old, freshly divorced, legally protected, and finally free. Behind her, muffled voices echoed through the thick courthouse doors, angry ones, panicked ones, voices that used to control her, belittle her, shame her. Not anymore. Emily closed her eyes, and in the quiet of her mind, a memory rose, soft, warm, and steady. Her father's voice. "Strength isn't loud, Emily. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable." Her lips curled into the smallest smile. He had been right. She didn't need shouting. She didn't need revenge through cruelty. She didn't need to win by tearing others apart. She won by standing. She won by surviving. She won by listening to his final gift, the truth. She opened her eyes again. Across the courthouse window, Adam appeared, pale, hollow, broken. He stood behind the glass like a man trapped in a cage of his own making. He had nothing now. No money, no family who believed in him, no mistress to run to, and no power over her. Margaret wasn't with him. She had stormed out earlier, screaming at him for ruining everything. Sabrina had disappeared long before the judge stamped the divorce papers, leaving Adam mid-sentence without a second glance. He was alone, completely. His eyes found Emily through the glass. He lifted a hand, not in anger this time, but in pleading. Emily didn't move. He mouthed something. Please. Another plea. One he should have made years ago, when she was still fighting for their marriage, still trying to keep them together, still believing in him. But now, she simply watched him in silence. She had already given him enough. Emily turned away, her hair catching the sunlight like a soft halo. Her steps were slow, steady, confident, every one of them a goodbye to the girl who once lived for someone else's approval. Halfway down the steps, a gentle breeze brushed across her face, carrying with it a familiar warmth, almost like a hand she once held. Her father's voice whispered through her memory, "My daughter, never let cruelty shrink your heart. You were always meant for more." Emily breathed in deeply. Her father was gone. Her marriage was gone. Her fear was gone. But she was still here, stronger, clearer, unshakable. She reached the bottom step and paused. Something inside her shifted. Not fear, not sadness, but acceptance. A new chapter waited, a life her father built for her with love, protection, and trust. Emily walked forward without looking back. Behind her, the courthouse door creaked open again. A familiar voice, Mr. Thompson's, called out softly, "Emily, when you're ready, there's one more thing your father left for you. It arrived today, the documents with his company's crest. It's about your future, not your past." Her steps slowed. One more thing. She turned her head slightly, not enough to look back, just enough to let the possibility sink in. Her story wasn't done yet. Something else waited. Something her father had planned long before anyone realized it. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.